Why did every set of eyes on the parade ground avoid hers, until the moment they wanted her to fail? The sun hammered Naval Base Pacifica without mercy, the kind of heat that made the asphalt shine like a black mirror. Lieutenant Zira Cassis stood in formation, spine straight, jaw locked in quiet discipline. Sweat slid down the curve of her neck, but she didn't move, not even a breath wasted. Commander Brett Huxley paced slowly before the assembled officers, savoring his moment of authority. Some wore that anxious, eager expression of people hopping to impress. Others already looked defeated by the Californian sun. Zira simply watched. Not watched him, watched everything. Shadows, movements, subtle shifts in posture, the way the wind carried sound, the things most people missed. But not her. When Huxley stopped in front of her, she knew the rest of the morning had already been decided. "Lieutenant Cassis," he barked, "you'll lead Team Delta through the maritime interdiction scenario." A ripple ran through the formation. Not shock, something closer to disbelief. Team Delta had failed the exercise 3 times, 3 different leaders, 3 different humiliations. Choosing her wasn't opportunity. It was punishment dressed as protocol. "Yes, sir," she answered, voice even, controlled, untouched. But underneath that calm, something tightened. A quiet reminder she had learned long ago: people show their hand by how they try to break you. The exercise began at 900, the mock hostile vessel rocking gently in the training bay. Zira's team gathered around her, 3 junior officers who looked everywhere except at her. Eyes down, brows tense, unspoken doubt written in every line of their faces. Ensign Merritt, the most transparent of them, finally spoke. "Standard protocol," he said with that barely hidden smirk, "is to breach from starboard." Zira studied the vessel blueprint, scanned its layout once, twice, already accounting for choke points, predictable enemy responses, likely angles of fire. Then she shook her head. Port side, 2 entry points, smoke cover, no radio comms unless necessary. "That's not standard," Merritt said, louder this time, hoping others heard. "It's correct," she answered simply. "Move." Her voice didn't rise, didn't sharpen. She spoke like someone not trying to be obeyed, just expecting it. And that, more than anything, made them fall silent. The scenario unfolded differently than anyone expected, including Huxley, who watched from the control tower, jaw tightening with each passing minute. Because Team Delta, his lost cause team, moved like they had a leader worth following. Until halfway through the operation, when Zira's radio crackled, sputtered, then went dead. Her eyes narrowed. Communication sabotage. A convenient malfunction, at a convenient time. She didn't call it out. She simply switched to hand signals, guiding her team with silent precision through smoke, steel, and simulated gunfire. And somehow, despite the setup, despite the odds, they finished the exercise faster than any other team that day. 3 minutes faster. With perfect accuracy. When Huxley displayed the results in the debrief room, he barely concealed his frustration. "Lieutenant Cassis," he said sharply, "explain your deviation from protocol." "The vessel configuration demanded an alternative approach," she answered. "You're suggesting our established protocols are flawed." "No, sir. I'm suggesting they weren't built for this vessel." The senior officers sitting along the wall, representatives from Admiral Blackwood's staff, leaned forward, interested, watching closely. And Zira, she just stood there, not triumphant, not smug, just still, collected, controlled. Huxley's jaw ticked, a small pulse of irritation. "And the communications failure," he pressed. "Equipment malfunction, sir," she said. "We adapted." The room fell silent. The kind of silence that held truth inside it. But Huxley moved on, because he had already decided his next move. That afternoon, during qualification results, he read off names, none of them hers. When he reached the end of the list, he paused. Lieutenant Cassis, he announced. Effective immediately, reassigned to Gate 4 security detail. The officers around her exchanged whispers. Gate 4. The place careers went a die quietly. The place no officer was meant to be seen. But Zira didn't flinch. She lifted her chin, saluted, and walked away. In her barracks that evening, she silently prepared her uniform for gate duty, every movement methodical, sharp, perfect. A photograph lay face down on her desk. She rested her fingers on the back of the frame, not flipping it over. Not tonight. Lieutenant Webb leaned against her doorway. "You really got under Huxley's skin," he said. Zira didn't answer, just polished her boots. "No one knows where you came from," he continued. 6 months here, no stories, no off-duty time, you're like a ghost." Still no reaction. "Or maybe," Webb said with a shrug, "just someone running from failure." Zira only replied with 2 words. "Good night." At 5:45 the next morning, she arrived at Gate 4, the forgotten checkpoint on the edge of the base, where the asphalt ended and desert scrub began. The guard booth's AC unit hadn't worked in months. By 800, the heat was already sweltering. She stood there perfectly still while officers passed and pretended not to see her. Some smirked, some whispered, some tossed trash near her boots. But Zira never broke posture, never broke focus. Some people think humiliation crushes a person, but sometimes it only reveals who never needed their approval in the first place. By midday, the temperature hit 103 degrees. Her uniform clung to her skin, sweat dripped down her spine. The sun burned unforgivingly. Still she stood. Still she watched. Still she waited. And she noticed things no one else did. A supply driver who stared too long. A helicopter whose targeting system was off by a few degrees. A civilian worker who seemed to recognize her when he shouldn't. And then late in the afternoon, a maintenance worker, Eldridge, uttered a word that nearly made her freeze. "Never thought I'd see Damascus standing gate duty." Damascus. Her old call sign. Her buried identity. A name she hadn't heard in years. He drove away before she could respond, but the damage had been done. A ripple beneath her calm surface. A memory awakened. By the time the sun set, she'd endured 13 hours of heat, insults, and intentional isolation. When Master Chief Reeves came by at nearly 10 p.m. and handed her a dinner bag, she also whispered something else. "Admiral's inspection, 600, be ready." Later, at the bottom of the paper bag, Zira found a note slipped inside when she hadn't been looking. 5 words. Precise block letters. Lazarus Protocol, 600 hours, prepare. Her hands trembled just once. Then she folded the note, tucked it into her pocket, and resumed her stance under the dark, empty desert sky. Most of the base slept. Most believed Gate 4 was quiet, worthless, forgotten. But Zira Cassis stood there, alone, ready, watching the horizon carefully. Because she knew something was coming. She could feel it in the stillness. And when the dust cloud appeared at dawn, 5 black SUVs, diplomatic flags, motorcycle escorts. Every officer on base would remember this moment. The moment the joke stopped. The moment the gate girl stopped being invisible. The moment Admiral Blackwood whispered a call sign that froze the entire base. Damascus. How could a single whispered word turn an entire naval base into stone? The moment Admiral Blackwood's boots touched the asphalt outside Gate 4, the checkpoint, once a place of mockery and punishment, became the center of gravity for the entire base. Officers who had ignored Zira hours earlier now stood rigid, unsure where to look, unsure what they had just witnessed. Damascus. Her old call sign. A name buried behind classified walls and sealed missions. a name spoken only by those who had survived what she had survived. Admiral Blackwood stepped closer, his expression unreadable. His silver hair caught the morning sun, and though age carved lines across his face, it added gravity, more permanence than time could take away. He returned Zira's salute. Not a polite salute. Not a procedural one. A salute of recognition. Respect. Debt. She held it steady, even as she felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Around them, a silence deeper than sound took over. Huxley, standing off to the side, looked like someone watching a floor collapse beneath him. Admiral Blackwood lowered his hand only when he was ready, then spoke softly, too softly for anyone but her and Master Chief Reeves to hear. You kept your cover longer than anyone expected. Zira didn't blink. Operational necessity, sir. He nodded slightly. You handled Gate 4 as if it mattered. It did matter, she said. And somehow, that answer made something soften in his expression. Director Imara Collins, sharp-suited, eye-side, stepped out of the SUV behind him. The kind of woman who wore authority like body armor. She scanned Zira up and down before speaking with crisp clarity. Lieutenant Commander Zira Cassis, she said, emphasizing the rank that the uniform on Zira's shoulders did not currently show. Special Activities Division, Task Force 88. Zira remained perfectly still. Inside, her heart hammered once, only once, before returning to quiet rhythm. Commander Huxley stepped forward as if trying to reclaim his role in the moment. Admiral Blackwood, sir, if I may explain the irregular assignment. Blackwood didn't even look at him. No, you may not. Huxley froze, swallowing hard, the reality landing somewhere deep in his gut. He stepped back. Director Collins handed Zira a secure tablet. Damascus Protocol is reactivated, effective immediately. For the first time in 16 hours, Zira moved. Not a step, not a gesture, just her eyes lowering to the tablet screen. She scanned the first line. Mission status, priority 0. Threat level critical. Target Anton Varys. Location, active U.S. soil. Her breath caught, barely. A small, controlled pause she hid behind the motion of closing the case. Admiral Blackwood stepped forward, voice steady. 3 years ago, you prevented a biological attack that would have killed millions, he said, loud enough now for others to hear. Your role was classified, your identity obscured, but make no mistake, this officer saved lives most of you will never know existed. Whispers rippled across the base like a shockwave. Gate girl. Wash out. Ghost. Now replaced by something heavier. Damascus. Blackwood continued, his gaze sweeping across the stunned officers. And over the last 6 months, most of you have been using tactical protocols designed by her, improved by her, lived because of her. Huxley looked physically ill. Director Collins folded her hands behind her back. Commander Cassis, your cover is dissolved effective this moment, full rank restored, reporting orders to follow. Zira inhaled slowly, the air tasting like heat and dust and awakening. Her voice was steady when she answered. Yes, ma'am. Blackwood's eyes softened briefly before shifting back to command. Form the perimeter, he ordered his security detail. We're moving. He turned back to her once more, his voice dropping to that private tone reserved only for the people who had earned it. You stood this gate with dignity, he said. Now we need you where you belong. He gave one final nod, silent, knowing before stepping into the SUV. The door shut. The convoy rolled out. And just like that, the entire base exhaled at once. Master Chief Reeves approached, her face unreadable except for the slightest flicker of pride. You're relieved of checkpoint duty, Commander Cassis. Zira's jaw tightened. It wasn't the relief that hit her, it was something heavier, a memory, A promise, a past that had just become present again. Yes, Master Chief. As they walked toward Command Building Alpha, officers moved aside, creating a path she hadn't asked for. Some looked down. Some stared openly. A few saluted instinctively before catching themselves. Wordless apologies hung in the air like heat. Zira ignored them all. Inside the command building, conversations halted mid-sentence. Someone nearly dropped their coffee. Lieutenant Riker, who had been the only one to look troubled the day before, stood at rigid attention. "Commander," he said, voice low, respectful. "Gate 4 I didn't know." "Most people didn't," she replied. "Still, I should have." "Lieutenant," she interrupted gently, "it's done." She didn't offer forgiveness, didn't offer judgment, just truth. Director Collins met her at the secure briefing door. "Inside," she said, "it's time." Zira stepped into the dim room. Screens lit the walls in shifting blue and white. Intel officers moved quietly. Maps, data streams, satellite images, her old world waiting for her to reclaim it. And at the head of the table, Admiral Blackwood's face appeared on a secure video feed, voice calm but urgent. "Commander Cassis, you're reactivated at the highest authority. The threat is real. The timeline is short." Director Collins slid a dossier across the table. Zira opened it. "Colonel Anton Veres. Former Special Forces. Now mercenary. Responsible for 4 deaths in Damascus. Responsible for the wounds she carried in places no one could see. Your call sign frightened him more than our drones ever did," Blackwood said. "You got close once. We need you to finish it." Zira kept reading, jaw set. "He's on U.S. soil," Collins added, voice low. "We believe he's preparing an attack on a scale rivaling the Damascus incident." A faint pulse of memory hit Zira. Rivera choking. Torres fatting. Blood. Sand. Cold stone walls. Screams that never reached daylight. Her fingers tightened on the dossier, knuckles pale. "Permission to speak freely," she said quietly. Blackwood's expression softened. "Always." "I'll find him," she said, "and I'll stop him. Whatever he's planning, it ends." A hush fell over the room. Not because of the words. Because of how she said them. Not with anger. Not with revenge. With clarity. Purpose. Something colder. Something sharper. Like a blade pulled from a sheath it never should have been put in. Collins nodded once, satisfied. "Your team is already being assembled." "Wilson?" Zira asked. "Yes." "Nazari?" "Already inbound." She exhaled slowly. Pieces of her old life, her real life, clicking back into place. Blackwood leaned forward, voice lowering. "Commander, your cover life is over now, but the world you're stepping back into won't be kinder just because you left it." Her eyes lifted to the screen, steady. "I know, sir." Reeves added softly, "This mission will cost something. They always do." Zira looked down at the Damascus dossier again, thumb brushing over Veres' cold, merciless stare. "No mission worth doing is ever free," she murmured. She closed the file. And with that simple motion, quiet, deliberate, final, Zira Cassis stepped fully back into the world she had once tried to leave. Damascus had risen. And everyone in that room knew. Nothing about this operation would ever be the same again. What made a person return to the life that once broke them? Zira asked herself that question as she sat alone in the dim operations locker room, the fluorescent light above flickering like an old, tired heartbeat. The familiar scent of metal, oil, and suppressed adrenaline filled the air. She rested her hands on the steel table, fingers curled slightly, grounding herself in the cold surface. It felt like standing between 2 worlds, the one she had tried to build and the one that refused to let her go. A door hissed open behind her. "Still quiet before the storm, huh?" a voice said. Zira turned her head slightly. Wilson. Chief Petty Officer Aaron Wilson, her former second-in-command. Tall, broad-shouldered, face cut by desert sun and too many sleepless missions. He stepped into the room with the easy confidence of someone who had seen her at her worst and still stayed. You look like you've been living at Gate 4 for a decade, he said, dropping his duffel onto the bench. Only 16 hours, she replied dryly. He smirked, but it faded quickly when he really looked at her. His eyes softened. You shouldn't have been there. It kept my cover clean. He nodded reluctantly. Doesn't mean you deserved it. Deserved? Zira blinked once, a small, involuntary flinch. She had heard that word used too freely in life. Most of the time, it meant someone wanted to decide your worth for you. You're early, she said, shifting the conversation. Didn't want to miss the reunion, he said, and his grin returned. But when he reached into his bag and pulled out her old tactical harness, Damascus harness, black composite plates, reinforced chest strap, Zira froze. He held it out with both hands. It's been upgraded. Collins had R&D tweak the reinforced plating. Zira took it slowly. The weight in her palms felt like memory, like responsibility, like something she thought she might never touch again. Wilson's voice softened. Feels right, doesn't it? She didn't answer. Did it feel right? No. It felt necessary. There's a difference. Before she could respond, another voice cut through the room with warm, accented confidence. Is she finally letting you look sentimental, Wilson? I must be in the wrong locker room. Zira turned, and there she was. Specialist Layla Nazari, intelligence prodigy, sniper, linguist, the only person alive who could challenge Zira's calm with her own. Nazari approached, embraced Zira once in a quick, tight hug, then leaned back with an approving nod. You're still alive, she teased. Good. I was worried Huxley might have killed you with boredom. Zira allowed a faint smile. You tell one person you hate paperwork, and suddenly you're unfit for leadership. Oh, he didn't say that, Nazari replied, dropping her pack onto the bench. He said you were unpredictable. Zira blinked, and Nazari shrugged. He's right. Wilson chuckled. But beneath the banter, tension simmered. They all felt it, the weight of the mission, the resurrection of a call sign meant to stay buried, the knowledge that Varys was not just a threat. He was her threat. Her unfinished chapter. A ghost with teeth. So, Nazari said, tying her hair back with efficient speed, Blackwood briefed us. Varys is confirmed stateside. We'll get the full intel download in the war room. Zira nodded. But her mind drifted, something Collins had said earlier echoing like a warning. He's preparing something on a scale rivaling Damascus. That word again, Damascus, the city that carved itself into her bones. The place she lost her team, and nearly herself. Nazari's eyes flicked toward her, reading the tension the way she always could. You thinking about what happened last time? Zira didn't answer at first. Instead, she tightened the harness straps across her chest, grounding herself in the familiar weight. The way it pulled her shoulders back, made her posture straighten, made her remember who she was trained to be. But Nazari didn't need the answer spoken. She had always understood what Zira didn't say. Whatever happened then, Nazari said quietly, you're not the same person now. Zira froze. That sentence hit deeper than she expected. Wilson noticed, stepping in with his usual grounding practicality. We'll handle it like we always do together. Together, another dangerous word. Because together didn't guarantee survival. It only guaranteed loss would hurt more. Before the air grew too heavy, an overhead speaker crackled. Commander Cassis, report to War Room Alpha. All Task Force 88 personnel confirm readiness. Wilson slung his pack over his shoulder. That's our cue. Nazari cracked her knuckles, finally. Zira followed them through the corridor, the walk silent, heavy, filled with past and future colliding. They entered the war room. Director Collins stood at the front, Admiral Blackwood on the secure wall display. Intelligence officers lined the perimeter. Satellite footage, intercepted communications, and real-time movement maps illuminated the space in cold blue light. "Take a seat," Collins instructed. Zira did. The briefing began immediately. Blackwood's voice carried weight. Varys has formed a private cell operating under the codename Night Circle. They've acquired materials we believe are tied to nerve agent dispersal technology. A chill crawled down Zira's spine. Collins continued, tapping a touchscreen. An image of an abandoned warehouse district appeared. This location in Arizona shows signs of unusual heat signatures and unauthorized construction beneath ground level. We believe this is where Varys is staging. Wilson leaned forward. What's his angle? If he wanted mass casualties, there are easier places. Collins paused. We believe he intends to target a military installation. Silence. Zira exhaled, her voice low. Which base? Pacifica, Collins said. The room froze. Even the screen seemed to pause. Zira's heartbeat didn't spike, it dropped into something colder, sharper, focused like a laser cutting through fog. He's coming here, Wilson asked slowly. No, Collins said. He's sending someone else. She tapped the screen again. A face appeared. Zira's eyes narrowed. Recognition hit her like a slow-burning fuse igniting. Elena Markov, Zira whispered. A mercenary, a strategist, a shadow operative known for striking without hesitation. A woman Zira had once interrogated for 12 hours straight during the Damascus crisis. Nazari leaned back. She survived. Last intel had her gone. She disappeared, Collins corrected. Not gone. Zira studied the image. Markov's cold eyes, the scar at her jawline, the unflinching stare of someone who believed pain was a currency she could spend freely. Varys sent her to finish what he started, Zira murmured. Blackwood's voice filled the tension. Markov has already infiltrated the perimeter once. When? Zira asked. Yesterday. A pulse of anger struck deep and quiet, like a small explosion muffled beneath stone. Gate 4. The supply driver. The civilian worker who looked at her too long. The off-angle helicopter system. Pieces clicked into place like a puzzle she didn't realize she'd been assembling. She was scouting weaknesses, Zira said quietly. Collins nodded. Exactly. Nazari breathed out slowly. Zira, she saw you. Zira didn't deny it. Didn't hide from it. Then she'll come again, Zira said, but not to scout. Collins folded her arms. Your mission: identify Markov's point of entry, intercept her cell, and track the chain back to Varys. Zira opened her mouth to ask the next question, but Blackwood beat her to it. And Commander, this isn't just about stopping them. His eyes softened with warning. It's about confronting what you ran from. Zira held his gaze. I didn't run, she said. No, Blackwood agreed. You survived, but surviving leaves scars. Her jaw tightened, not with anger. With truth. She lowered her eyes to the table, feeling the weight of everything she once carried return to her shoulders. Heavy, familiar, cold. Understood, she said. Collins dismissed the team. Officers shuffled out, screens dimmed, lights returned to standard brightness. But Zira remained seated for a moment longer. Wilson and Nazari waited. You ready? Nazari asked quietly. Zira brushed a finger along the edge of the dossier. Varys' face stared back at her, unbothered, arrogant, certain he couldn't be touched. Her voice came out steady. I'm not ready, she admitted. Nazari blinked. Wilson frowned. Zira rose to her feet, gripping the dossier. "But I'm going anyway." She walked out, one step after another, leaving hesitation behind. Walking straight into the fire she thought she had escaped. Because sometimes strength isn't the ability to fight without fear. Sometimes strength is walking toward the thing that once broke you. With open eyes. What made fear more dangerous, the memory of it or the moment it returned? Zira asked herself this as the helicopter blades thundered above her, beating against the cold Arizona night air like a war drum. The wind whipped her hair back, carried dust across the abandoned industrial district, and tugged at the edge of the tactical harness she hadn't worn in 3 years. Nazari crouched beside her, checking her rifle scope by the dim red light. Wilson stood at the door latch, ready to jump, eyes narrowed and focused the way only someone who had survived too much could be. Below them stretched a maze of old warehouses, rusted roofs, collapsed walls, shadows where no shadows should exist, everything coated in the eerie stillness of places the world had forgotten. And somewhere down there, Elena Markov. And behind Markov's shadow, Varies. The pilot's voice crackled in their headsets, 2 minutes to drop. Zira nodded, but her mind wasn't on the descent. It was on the memory that kept threatening to surface, a bombed alleyway in Damascus, Tors bleeding out, the dust, the screams, the moment she realized Varies wasn't just a threat. He was a ghost maker. And she had been one heartbeat too late. Wilson tapped her shoulder. "Eyes up, Commander, don't go backward." She inhaled slowly. "I'm not." But Wilson didn't miss the tremor she hid under her breath. He squeezed her shoulder once, firm. "You're not alone this time." She didn't answer. Not because she disagreed, but because part of her feared the truth. Being needed meant having something to lose again. The helicopter dropped lower, dust churned below. Nazari spoke through the comms. Thermal scans picking up movement in Sector Charlie 3, too regular for wildlife. Zira focused in, eyes narrowing at the dark rooftop 2 buildings away, the faintest glimmer of light reflecting off what could only be a scope. "Sniper?" Wilson asked. Zira shook her head. "No, perimeter guard. Markov uses rotating singles." Nazari smirked slightly, assuming she's still as paranoid as last time. "She's worse," Zira said. A pause. The kind of pause that wasn't silent, it was trust. The kind that reminded them who she was before Gate 4, before the cover identity, before the guilt she carried like a hidden wound. The pilot's voice cut through again. 30 seconds. Zira gripped the rail. Every muscle coiled, every instinct sharpened. Fear didn't vanish, but fear became fuel. The helicopter banked hard left, settled just above the warehouse roof. "Go," Wilson shouted. Zira jumped first. Her boots hit the metal with a low thud. She rolled, came up in a crouch, rifle ready. Wilson landed beside her. Nazari followed silently, ghost-like. The helicopter peeled away, fatting into the distance. The night swallowed them. Nazari scanned the roof. One thermal signature moving north, could be a scout. Their timing is too clean for coincidence. Zira motioned toward the far ledge. "We're not here for a firefight. Keep silent, move fast." Wilson gave a curt nod. They descended through a broken ventilation chute into the dark interior. The air smelled of rust, dust, and the faint scent of gun oil. Light filtered in through thin cracks in the walls, casting long shadows. Zira crouched and traced her glove along the floor. "Tracks fresh. Human. 1 or 2 at most," she whispered. Wilson stepped up beside her. "You ready for this?" Zira's eyes lifted, steady and cold. "Ready enough." They moved deeper. The warehouse felt like a throat, narrow, dark, full of echoes that weren't echoes. Every drip of water, every groan of old metal felt amplified. Halfway through the corridor, Nazari paused. "Stop," she whispered. Zira froze. Nazari pointed at the far corner, a faint glint of silver. "Wire. Tripwire." Zira followed it with her gaze. "Explosive charge, small, military grade, designed to alert, not kill." Markov was here. Wilson exhaled. "She wants to know who's coming." Nazari shook her head. "She already knows." Zira didn't dismiss that. Markov had always been ahead of her enemies. She didn't trust traps, she trusted intel. Zira moved carefully, disabling the wire with flawless precision. The small act brought back a flood of memories, her hands covered in dust, a wounded medic beside her, a child hidden behind a wall, various men approaching. She blinked once, hard, grounding herself. "Not then, now." "Movement," Wilson whispered, snapping her back. Footsteps light, fast. "Approaching." Zira motioned for cover. They pressed against the wall. A shadow, elongated on the concrete. Growing closer. A guard rounded the corner, younger than she expected, maybe in his 20s, mask covering his face, rifle lowered but ready. He saw Zira first. And froze. She surged forward, grabbing him by the collar, slamming him against the wall with a force she had forgotten she still possessed. The guard gasped, gun dropping from his hands. Wilson secured him. Nazari checked the hall. Zira pressed her forearm lightly against the guard's throat. "Where Markov?" The guard shook his head, eyes wide with fear. Zira lowered her voice, calm, steady, lethal in its softness. "She brought you here to die. I'm offering something better. Talk." His breathing quickened. Sweat formed at his temple. She's in the south building," he stammered. "Not alone, he's there. Varies. They knew the base was compromised. They moved fast." Zira's jaw tightened. "Varies here." That changed everything. "What's their objective?" Nazari demanded. The guard swallowed hard. "Not the base, something else, someone." Zira felt a cold tug in her chest. "Who?" The guard hesitated. Zira leaned in. "Talk." "Someone high value," he whispered. "Someone they need gone before the operation begins." Wilson frowned. Who the hell would? Nazari's eyes widened. "No." Zira went still. Nazari repeated, voice barely above a breath. "No, it can't be." "Say it," Zira said. Nazari pointed at the map on her wrist screen, the south building, a thick pipeline running beneath it. Military-grade encrypted fiber. Connecting directly to one place. Command Building Alpha. Zira's pulse slowed. Blackwood. Varys wasn't after the base. He was after the Admiral. Wilson cursed under his breath. "We're late, we're damn late." Zira tightened her grip on her rifle. Her voice was low, trembling only with purpose. "We move now." They sprinted through the corridor, boots pounding against concrete, past rusted machinery and forgotten crates, through a rear exit and across the open yard. The moon hung low, pale and indifferent, casting long shadows across the dirt. Zira pushed faster. Every breath burned. Every step felt like chasing a memory she'd sworn she outrun. Nazari kept pace on her left. Wilson on her right. They reached the next building, the south warehouse. Its door was already open. A faint light spilled out. And then they heard it. A voice. Her voice. Cold, confident, unhurried. "Elena Markov," Zira whispered. She didn't need to see her to know. She felt it, that familiar tension in the air, the presence that once stalked her through Damascus's streets. Wilson raised his rifle. "On your lead." Zira steadied her breath. Fear didn't fade. It sharpened. She stepped through the doorway, slow, controlled, every muscle prepared. The room was dark. Too dark. Shadows clung to the corners like watching eyes. Only a single lamp illuminated the center. And there, standing under the light as if waiting for her, was Elena Markov. Her lips curled into a chilling smile. "I knew you'd come, Damascus." Zira didn't lower her weapon. Didn't blink. Markov stepped closer, eyes glinting with cruel satisfaction. "But you're already too late. Why did some enemies smile when they saw you, like they'd been waiting for the moment you returned to them?" Markov's smile held that exact truth. A slow, taunting curl of the lips that said she'd predicted every step, every breath, every angle of Zira's approach. Zira didn't return the expression. She stood still, breathing through the tension, her rifle trained on the woman who represented every unfinished chapter of her past. "Where is he?" Zira asked quietly. Markov tilted her head, amused. "Straight to the point, you haven't changed." "You're wasting time," Zira replied. "Tell me where Varys is." Markov stepped forward into the cone of lamplight. The years had hardened her not with age but with certainty. Her pale eyes reflected nothing. No warmth, no humanity, just purpose sharpened into cruelty. "You want him?" she asked softly. "Then take a good look around you." Zira's pulse tightened. She scanned the warehouse interior in a single sweeping glance. Empty. Quiet. Too quiet. Wilson murmured over comms. "Something's wrong. There's no heat signatures except hers." "No, there are," Nazari corrected quietly, "but they're not moving." Zira saw it then. Shadows. Not empty ones. Human shapes. Figures slumped against walls and pillars tied to support beams, all unconscious, some breathing shallow, some not breathing at all. Most wore civilian clothing. One wore a military jacket. Zira's stomach dropped as she recognized the insignia. Pacifica Logistics Division. Hostages. She gripped her rifle harder. "What did you do?" Markov lifted a small device between two fingers, a trigger, wireless, modular, old Soviet design updated with modern encryption. "I simply rearranged the board," she said calmly. "Varys wants the base. I want you." Zira's throat tightened. "Why me?" A shadow crossed Markov's face, dark and unblinking. "Because you ruined Damascus for us." Nazari flinched at the name. Wilson tightened his stance. Zira's breath steadied. "Varys ordered that attack." "And you stopped it," Markov said. "You cost him a billion-dollar contract. You cost me half my team. You cost our network 3 years of silence. And worst of all." She leaned forward slightly. "You walked away with your life." Zira's chest tightened, a quiet ache she hid behind iron control. Markov continued, voice soft as smoke. "You think your survival was a victory. Funny. Varys thinks of it as an unfinished task." Zira stayed still, unreadable. "If he wants me, he can face me himself." Markov's smile sharpened. "He will, but not yet." Wilson shifted behind Zira, ready to move. "Commander," she's stalling. Markov's gaze flicked to him. "Stay where you are, Chief, unless you want these people to die." Her thumb floated over the trigger. Nazari's fingers brushed her sidearm. "You won't blow a warehouse with yourself inside it." Markov's laugh was cold. "You think I care about dying?" Zira held up a hand, small, controlled, stopping her team. She stepped forward slowly, rifle lowering a fraction. "What do you want, Elena?" Markov's eyes gleamed. "I want you to remember what you did in Damascus." Zira's jaw tightened. She didn't speak. Markov continued, stepping closer. "You remember the alley, the smoke, the bodies, the look on Varys' face when he realized you outplayed him." Zira inhaled sharply. "Not with fear. With clarity." "You were there," she whispered. Markov nodded. "I watched you drag a wounded civilian out from under a collapsing barricade. I watched you take a bullet meant for Tors. I watched you crawl through fire. I watched Varys aim at you from 20 meters away and hesitate. Zira blinked. He didn't hesitate. Oh, he did, Markov murmured, because he wanted a clean kill, a lesson, a symbol. Zira swallowed hard, pain twisting deep inside her. Markov leaned close, her voice a thin blade. He wanted you to know who killed you. Zira didn't breathe. Couldn't. And then, Markov whispered, your team intervened, and for the first time in his life, Varys lost control. Zira's voice came out barely audible. You're lying. Am I? Markov asked. Tell me, why do you think he left you alive? Why do you think he let you escape? Zira felt a tremor run down her spine. Wilson saw it, stepped closer instinctively. Markov smiled, sensing the fracture. Because killing you then would have been mercy. Killing you now is justice. Zira steadied her breathing, steady, controlled, calm. Then she said the one thing Markov hadn't expected. You're not here for justice. You're here for distraction. Markov's smile vanished. A beat of silence. Then, Markov pressed her thumb on the trigger. Zira lunged. Wilson tackled 2 hostages to the ground. Nazari dove behind a concrete pillar. Zira slammed into Markov's arm, twisting the device free just as a sharp popping noise echoed through the warehouse. Not an explosion. Gas. A faint mist released overhead. Nazari shouted, aerosol dispersal, masks now. All 3 pulled their respirators in a single motion, trained reflex and muscle memory snapping into action. Zira grabbed Markov by the throat, slamming her against the pillar. What was that? Zira demanded. Markov laughed, breath hitching under the pressure. The beginning. Beginning of what? Zira growled. Markov's eyes glittered with something terrifying. It wasn't the gas you needed to worry about. Wilson snapped his head toward the west wall. Commander, heat signatures spiking, multiple incoming. Nazari cursed under her breath. Her whole team was waiting. Zira tightened her grip, eyes burning into Markov's. Where is Varys? Markov smiled with broken defiance. Closer than you think. The warehouse lights shut off. Total darkness. Footsteps echoed. Dozens. A cold voice drifted through the shadows. Not Markov. Male. Deep. Familiar in a way that froze Zira's pulse mid-beat. Damascus. Zira's breath hitched. That voice. That nightmare. That ghost. Varys. Leave her, he ordered calmly. The footsteps stopped. Markov exhaled shakily, almost relieved. You see, he came for you. Zira didn't turn toward the voice. She kept her grip on Markov, finger trembling against the trigger of her sidearm. Varys spoke again, closer now, the sound of someone who had waited too long to enjoy this moment. You ran from Damascus, he said softly, but I knew you would come back. Zira forced her voice steady. I didn't run. No, Varys whispered. You survived, I can fix that. Nazari whispered sharply over comms. We need to move. Wilson whispered, Commander, your call. Zira didn't blink. Didn't shake. Didn't lose eye contact with Markov. Varys, she said, voice low and lethal. If you touch Blackwood, I will bury everyone who stands with you. Silence. Then Varys laughed. Soft, amused, chilling. You think this is about the Admiral, he murmured. Zira's breath stalled. He's only one piece Damascus. Varys' silhouette emerged from the corner. Tall, armored, unflinching. This is about you. The lights burst back on. And Zira saw it. The real trap. The floor lined with shaped charges. Not aimed outward. Aimed inward. Nazari gasped. He's going to bring the whole building down. Wilson shouted, Commander orders now. And for the first time since Damascus, Zira Cassis felt something break open inside her. Not fear, not pain. Resolve. Cold and absolute. She released Markov, raised her weapon, and said quietly, clearly, "Move." What does a person become when every exit closes, every shadow hides an ambush, and every step could be their last? Zira didn't wait for an answer. She moved. Wilson dragged 2 hostages toward the northern exit. Nazari fired suppression shots toward the catwalk above, where various men began closing in like wolves circling a wounded animal. Zira sprinted across the concrete floor, boots pounding in tight echoes against steel pillars. Shaped charges lined the walls, small, precise, placed with surgical intent, not meant to collapse the entire warehouse outward. Meant to funnel, meant to trap, meant to force her into one path. Very's path. He always played the long game. Shots cracked overhead. Sparks rained down. Zira ducked behind a crate, breathing hard through her respirator, the mask fogging for a moment before clearing. "Wilson," she said through comms, "yellow exit, get them out." "On it." "Nazari, cover his flank, then link with me." "Copy." Zira slid around the crate, moved low, and fired 2 precise rounds. One guard collapsed from the catwalk. Another fell through the railing, hitting the floor with a brutal thud. But through the chaos, through the gunfire, dust, and adrenaline, Zira searched for one face. One ghost. Varies. She heard him before she saw him. "Still fast, Damascus." His voice drifted from somewhere in the shadows. "But you're tired, slower than before." Zira didn't waste breath responding. She wasn't tired. She was focused. She moved toward the southern corridor, Vary's forced path, knowing full well what waited there. But every second counted now. Every second meant Blackwood was still breathing. Nazari sprinted up beside her. "Wilson's clear, 6 hostages out, 3 left inside." Zira nodded. "We get them and collapse the corridor. No pursuit." Nazari gave a sharp grin. Finally, something fun. They pushed forward. The southern hallway was a long, narrow passage of rusted iron beams and flickering bulbs. The air tasted metallic, too still, too quiet. Zira lifted her rifle and whispered, "Nazari, thermal." Nazari tapped her visor, reading 3, no, 4 heat signatures ahead. "Hostages. One is restrained, others are armed." Zira exhaled, "Markov's unit." They inched forward. Then a figure stepped into the light. Not Vary's. Markov. Her lip bled from the earlier scuffle. Her breathing was shallow, but her eyes, cold, unbroken, still held the same venom. "You can't save them all," she said quietly. Zira leveled her weapon. "I don't need to, just need to get past you." Markov smiled, "Then do it." She stepped aside. Zira froze. A trap was expected, a fight was expected, but stepping aside, that meant something worse. Nazari whispered, "Commander, don't." Zira approached slowly. Markov didn't move, didn't lift her weapon, didn't even flinch. "You know what Varies wants," Markov said quietly. "I know he wants me," Zira replied. "No, he wants your failure." Zira's fingers tightened around her rifle. Markov continued, voice dimming to a whisper. "He wants you to remember leaving people behind, like Damascus." A sharp pain stabbed Zira's chest, but she didn't let it show. "What do you gain from helping him?" Zira demanded. Markov exhaled, slowly, shakily, for the first time showing something close to vulnerability. "He saved me," she whispered. "Saved me when I was nothing, when I was broken, gave me purpose." Zira's eyes darkened. "He didn't save you, he used you." Markov looked away, a crack in the armor. Nazari saw it too. "She's stalling, something's coming." A scream echoed down the corridor. One of the hostages. Zira pushed past Markov. Nazari followed. Markov didn't try to stop them. At the end of the hallway, 3 hostages were tied to steel posts, gagged, bruised. 2 guards kept watch. Zira fired twice. Both guards dropped. Nazari rushed forward to cut the restraints. "Commander," Nazari whispered urgently, "something's wrong." Zira scanned the area. Nothing. Then she saw it. On the wall behind the hostages. A timer. Red digital numbers. Counting down. 000009. 000008. 000007. Zira grabbed the nearest hostage and shoved him toward the exit. "Move." Nazari did the same, pushing the other 2 forward. 000006. 000005. Wilson's voice crackled over comms. "Blast inbound, run." Zira shouted, "Nazari doorway now." They sprinted, dragging the hostages with them. The corridor stretched endlessly like a nightmare tunnel. Zira's lungs burned. Her legs screamed. The world narrowed to the pools in countdown echoing in her skull. 000003. 000002. They dove behind a steel support beam. 000001. The explosion ripped the corridor apart. A shockwave of fire, dust, and metal slammed into them. The blast threw Zira backward, her helmet cracking against concrete. Noise turned to static. The world spun. A high-pitched ringing blurred everything into white noise. Her vision flickered. Then, darkness. A heartbeat. Another. She blinked slowly. Dust filled the air, settling like ash after a funeral pyre. The corridor was mangled steel, broken concrete, and flames licking the shattered ceiling. Zira coughed, dragging herself up. Her arms trembled, her head ached. Nazari. A moment of crushing silence. Then, "I'm here," Nazari groaned, emerging from the dust, blood on her forehead but alive. "Hostages are down but breathing." Zira exhaled shakily. Relief stabbed so sharply it hurt. Nazari limped toward her. "That blast, Commander, that wasn't meant to kill us." "I know," Zira said, standing slowly. "It was meant to stop us." Nazari frowned. "From what?" Before Zira could answer, Wilson's voice burst through comms, breathless, panicked. Something rare for him. "Commander, Blackwood is gone." Zira froze. "What do you mean gone?" she whispered. "I mean he's gone," Wilson gasped. "Various operatives infiltrated the convoy. They took him, dragged him into a black van. He's off base. Admiral Blackwood is in enemy hands." The warehouse air grew cold. Markov's voice echoed down the hallway behind them, soft, sad, almost gentle. "You were focused on the wrong side of the board." Zira turned sharply as Markov stepped out of the dust cloud. "Varys never wanted you trapped," she continued. "He wanted him." Zira's blood ran ice cold. "He knew you chase him here. He knew you dig into every shadow. He knew you fight to save strangers." Zira didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Markov stepped closer, eyes dimming to something that looked almost like pity. "He knows you, Damascus, better than you know yourself." Zira's voice dropped to a razor's edge. "Start talking." But Markov only gave the smallest nod toward the ruined doorway. "You want Varys," she whispered. "Then you'll go to the only place he would take a man like Blackwood." "Where?" Nazari demanded. Markov met Zira's eyes, unflinching. "Back where it began." Zira's heartbeat stuttered. Nazari whispered, "Commander, she means." Markov finished it for her. "Damascus." Zira went still. Truly still. The kind of stillness a person feels when the world narrows to a single, Inescapable truth. Varys hadn't been hunting a base. Hadn't been hunting a title. He'd been hunting a memory, dragging her back to the one place she swore she'd never see again. Behind them, sirens wailed, flames crackled, hostages coughed, dust rained from the broken beams. And Zira Cassis, breathing hard, fists trembling, felt something inside her shift. Confrontation, fear, purpose, and an old wound tearing open. Nazari swallowed hard. Zira, what do we do? Zira didn't hesitate. She raised her rifle. Her voice was low, steady, final. We go to Damascus. What does it take for a person to willingly walk back into the place that once broke them? For most, it would take courage. For Zira Cassis, it took purpose. The jet-carrying Task Force 88 cut through the night sky like a silent blade. No lights, no markings, no flight plan submitted through any channel the public or even the military would ever see. Nazari sat across from Zira, head bowed, eyes closed, not asleep, but in the quiet state she entered before a dangerous mission. Wilson adjusted the straps on his plate carrier, jaw clenched tight enough to crack teeth. No jokes this time, no light-hearted distractions. Even he understood what this mission meant. The cabin hummed, steady and low, the white noise wrapping around them like a shroud. Zira stared at the map projected on the table before her. Her fingers hovered just above the image. Damascus, its old city walls marked in red, its underground service tunnels marked in blue. Memories crawled up from places she'd buried them. Tors bleeding in the narrow alleyway. Rivera coughing from smoke inhalation. The sound of a collapsing roof. The moment she realized Varys wasn't fleeing. He was hunting. Wilson finally broke the silence. We shouldn't be going alone. Zira didn't look up. We aren't. Local assets will meet us on approach. Local assets, he echoed skeptically. The kind with guns or the kind with opinions? Both, Nazari murmured without opening her eyes. Wilson shook his head. We need a platoon, too. Air support, armor, something. Zira lifted her gaze to him, calm, steady, unshaken. Varys wants noise, she said. He wants attention. He wants an American show of force. He wants a televised humiliation. If we bring an army, we give him everything he wants. Wilson ran a hand over his face. Yeah, well, what if he gets a body instead? Nazari cracked one eye open. Then we make sure it's not ours. Zira almost smiled, but the weight of the moment held it back. The pilot's voice came through the intercom. Commander Cassis, 10 minutes until Syrian airspace transition. Zira stood. Nazari and Wilson followed. She walked to the small window. The world below was nothing but darkness, a soft blur of shapes, mountains and valleys, but she knew the terrain, knew the smell of the dust, knew the echo of its streets. And she knew Varys wasn't bringing Blackwood here to negotiate. He was bringing him here to end something. And maybe to end her. Wilson approached gently like someone approaching a wounded animal. We get the Admiral out. That's priority. Whatever you're thinking, don't go off script. I'm not, she said softly. Promise me. Her jaw tightened. Wilson stepped closer. Zira. She inhaled slowly, grounding herself. Finally she nodded. I promise. He studied her for another second, as if checking whether she meant it, then gave a small nod. Nazari rose to her feet, rolling her shoulders. All right, whatever nightmare he's built for you down there, we tear it apart together. Together. That word again. Zira swallowed hard. Thank you. Nazari smirked. Don't thank me yet. Wait until we survive. The jet dipped lower. Lights flickered in the cabin. The intercom crackled again. Commander, we have confirmation. Your contact is in position. Zira took her gear and headed toward the rear hatch. The ramp lowered. A rush of cold air filled the cabin. Wind whipped her hair back, carrying a scent she hadn't smelled in 3 years. Dust. Fire. The faint chemical burn of old battles and older wounds. Damascus. She tightened her harness and stepped to the edge. Wilson muttered, "I hate this part." Nazari smirked, then jumped first. He glared at her, not a chance. Zira cut in quietly, 3, 2, 1. They all leapt. The night swallowed them whole. Their parachutes deployed low to avoid radar. They hit the ground silently, Zira first, Nazari second, Wilson third. A quiet, flickering lantern glowed from behind a broken stone wall. A tall man stepped out, dark vest, old rifle, scar across his cheek. He didn't smile, didn't speak. Just nodded once. "Commander Cassis," he said with a thick accent, "you came back." Zira recognized him immediately. Yusuf al-Muraj, former local militia. The man who had carried Tor's body to safety. She bowed her head slightly. "Yusuf." He stepped closer, eyes softening. "You survived." "So did you." He clasped her forearm, "Barely." Wilson murmured, "I like him already." Yusuf gestured. "Follow, quickly. The city shifts at night. You don't want to be on these streets when it does." They moved. Yusuf led them through a maze of narrow alleys, some newly rebuilt, some still bearing scars of war. Children's voices echoed faintly from distant courtyards. Laundry hung between destroyed buildings. Life and death interwoven in fragile threads. Zira's chest tightened. She remembered this place when it was burning. When bodies filled the med van. When she carried guilt heavier than her gear. Nazari touched her shoulder lightly. "Breathe." Zira nodded. They continued. Finally, Yusuf stopped at an abandoned textile factory near the old city wall. "Various men use the tunnels beneath," he whispered. "He knows these shadows. He's been here for days." Zira stiffened. "And the Admiral?" Yusuf hesitated, then pointed downward. "Below." Zira exhaled, a slow, steady release of pressure. "Any word on his condition?" she asked. Yusuf shook his head, "Only that he's alive for now." Wilson muttered, "Varys won't kill him until he gets what he wants." Zira didn't respond. She already knew what Varys wanted. He wanted her. They descended into the tunnels. Dark, narrow, echoing with the quiet drip of water. Zira moved first, flashlight low, rifle raised. Yusuf guided them left, then right, then down a steep decline carved into limestone. Voices echoed from somewhere deep below, a mixture of Arabic, Russian, and another language Zira recognized instantly. Chechen. Varys had brought in heavy hands. Yusuf signaled them to stop. He pointed toward a partially collapsed chamber. Inside, dim lights flickered. A chair sat at the center. A man bound to it. Admiral Blackwood. Bruised. Bloodied. Still breathing. Still conscious. Still defiant. Zira's heart clenched in a way she wasn't prepared for. Wilson whispered, "Commander, we need a plan." Nazari whispered, "We extract, then blow the tunnel." Yusuf whispered, "2 guards inside, more nearby." Zira didn't answer. Because from the shadows behind Blackwood, a figure stepped forward. Varys. He walked slowly into the light, wearing the same calm expression she remembered, the same unhurried posture, the same dead eyes. His voice cut through the dark. "I knew you'd come, Damascus." Zira stepped into the chamber, leaving the shadows behind. "Let him go," she said quietly. Varys tilted his head. "You care about the Admiral. This isn't about him." "Oh, but it is," Varys said. "He believes in you, he trusts you, he thinks you're salvageable." Zira's jaw tightened. Varys circled Blackwood like a wolf examining prey. "I disagree. I think you're broken, and broken things must be finished. Zira stepped closer. Nazari raised her rifle. Wilson steadied his aim. Yusuf vanished into the dark, preparing a flanking angle. Varys held up a hand. "Before you shoot me," he said softly, "let me tell you what really happened in Damascus." Zira froze. Varys smiled. "Cruel. Knowing. Precise. Do you truly want to hear it, Zira?" Her pulse hammered. She didn't answer. He stepped closer, lowering his voice until it felt like a blade sliding beneath her ribs. "You think you survived that day because you fought harder. You think Tors died because you were too late. You think you lived because of luck." Zira swallowed hard. Varys leaned in, whispering, "But the real reason you survived is because I let you." Time stopped. Wilson whispered, "Zira, don't listen." Nazari whispered, "He's manipulating you." But Zira's world had already narrowed. Varys continued, relentless. "I wanted you alive. I wanted the guilt to grow. I wanted you to break yourself." Zira's hands trembled. "You ever wonder," Varys asked, "why the bullet missed your heart? Why my men never chased you through that corridor? Why the charges detonated late?" Zira's breath trembled. Varys whispered, "I spared you. I shaped you. I made you." Zira's vision blurred, not with tears, but with a fury so deep it became stillness. Absolute stillness. She raised her rifle. "Varys," she whispered. He smiled. "Yes." Zira exhaled. "You didn't make me." Her voice sharpened. "You made a mistake." Varys' smile faded. Inside the chamber, the world waited. Zira took a slow step forward. Her voice dropped to a low, deadly whisper. "And now I'm going to correct it. What does a person become when the thing that broke them stands only an arm's length away?" Zira didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't look away from Varys. He finally realized she wasn't trembling. She wasn't hesitating. She wasn't afraid. She was ready. Varys stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "You think you're stronger now." "I know I am," she said. His jaw tightened, not with anger but calculation. He pivoted, placing himself behind Admiral Blackwood, hand lightly gripping the Admiral's shoulder. A warning. A threat. A reminder. "Lower your weapon," Varys said calmly, "and he lives." Blackwood, bruised and bound, lifted his chin. Even half-conscious, the man still held dignity. "Don't," he rasped. "Zira, don't you dare." Varys smirked. "See, even he knows you'll choose wrong." Nazari whispered through comms, "We have a flank, on your order." Wilson whispered, "One shot. Say the word, Commander." Yusuf whispered, "I can reach the Admiral, but you must distract him." Zira didn't answer them. She didn't need to. She was already moving. "Varys," she said softly, "you didn't spare me out of mercy." His eyes flicked to her. "You spared me because you were afraid." For the first time he stiffened. "Afraid of what I would become." She raised her rifle an inch. "Afraid of who I would become." He moved his hand from Blackwood's shoulder to Blackwood's throat. "A threat." Zira kept talking, calm, cutting, controlled. "You didn't make me stronger, you made me focused." Varys' grip tightened. "You didn't leave me alive as punishment. You left me alive because you couldn't finish what you started." His face hardened, voice dropping into a snarl. "You don't know anything." "I know this," she whispered. "You failed." She fired. Once. Not at him. At the ceiling junction box. A shower of sparks rained down. The lights cut out. The chamber plunged into darkness. "Gio," she shouted. Nazari fired toward the guard at Varys' right flank. Wilson dove left, ripping a knife from his vest. Yusuf lunged from the shadows, cutting Blackwood's restraints in a swift motion. Chaos erupted. Gunfire flashed in brief, violent bursts. Screams echoed off the limestone walls. Dust filled the air like smoke from an old battlefield. In the pitch-black darkness, Zira saw everything, not with sight, but with instinct sharpened by every moment that had nearly killed her. A silhouette moved to her left. She fired. A figure lunged behind her. She pivoted, slammed the stock of her rifle into their jaw. They fell. Nazari shouted, "Cover right." Wilson yelled, "Admiral, secure, move." Very's voice cut through the dark, low, furious, close. "Damascus." She turned toward the sound. A blade slashed through the dark. Zira ducked just in time, the knife grazing the side of her throat. Very's pressed forward, relentless, each strike a practiced execution. Slash. Thrust. Hook. Elbow. Shoulder. He attacked like a man who had trained his entire life to break other people. She blocked with her forearm, felt the shock reverberate through bone. Pain flared up her arm, but she ignored it. Blocked again. Parried. Countered. He struck for her ribs. She twisted, letting the blade skim her vest. He drove a knee toward her chest. She caught it, shoved him back into the shadows. They clashed again, closer now, breath hot, air thick with dust and adrenaline. He grinned through the dark. "You're weaker than Damascus." She whispered back, "No." A strike. A block. A twist. And then, "I'm stronger than you." She slammed her elbow into his jaw with a crack that echoed through the chamber. He stumbled. Just once. Just enough. She didn't hesitate. She grabbed the front of his vest and drove him into the stone pillar behind him. He gasped. She struck again, sharp, precise, fist to the throat, knee to the gut, forearm across his jaw. Her movements weren't pretty. They weren't technical. They were survival sharpened into instinct. Very stumbled backward, knife clattering to the ground. "Yuka," he choked. Zira stepped into the faint beam of Yusuf's lantern, now flickering back to life, revealing her face, smeared with dust, scraped with blood, calm in a way that felt like terror itself. "You don't define me," she said quietly. "Damascus didn't break me, you didn't shape me, and you don't get to finish me." He lunged, last desperate strike. She sidestepped, caught him, and drove him to the ground. Her knee pinned his chest. Her breathing was ragged. Her hands trembled from adrenaline and old trauma, but not hesitation. Very stilled. No fight left. Just shock. Just disbelief. "You're not stronger," he gasped. She leaned down, voice barely a whisper. "No, I'm just not afraid of you anymore." He froze. That was the death blow. Not the strike. The truth. Because fear had always been his weapon. And she had taken it from him. Wilson's flashlight swept the chamber. Nazari secured the last guard. Yusuf pulled Blackwood to his feet. Zira stood, chest heaving. Varys didn't move again. Wilson approached cautiously, rifle raised. "Commander, he's down." Zira stared at him. Not with triumph. Not with anger. With something far more human. "Release." Nazari touched her shoulder gently. "Zira, we need to move." Zira nodded slowly. She walked to Blackwood. The Admiral lifted his bruised face. "You did it." She shook her head. "We did it." He reached for her hand. She clasped it, not like a soldier receiving orders, but like a daughter anchoring an elder who still mattered. "We're going home," she said. Blackwood smiled weakly. "Lead the way." They moved through the tunnels, guided by Yusuf's light. Each step away from the chamber felt like shedding weight she'd carried for years. Above them, the early light of dawn crept across the ruined rooftops. The city was quiet, almost peaceful. Wilson whispered, "You okay?" Zira didn't answer at first. She looked at Damascus, the city that had once buried her, now letting her leave. "I'm not okay," she said softly. Nazari nodded, understanding. "But I'm free." She exhaled slowly, letting the air carry 3 years of burden away. Sometimes strength isn't loud. Sometimes courage isn't rage. Sometimes victory isn't glory. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. Zira turned toward her team, her family. "Let's go home," she whispered. And together, they walked into the rising light.